Sure, you can always shop around for flooring, but in the end, it all leads back to the one place you probably should have started, the experts at Carpet One. Save yourself the time and the hassle and let Carpet One help you find the right product at the right price, beautifully installed, guaranteed. Come see the One, Carpet One, on the Business Loop in Columbia.
Good morning and welcome to Radio Friends on Friday, March the 11th. We're going to talk about something today that really doesn't happen here in central Missouri, but it could at one point, and that's earthquakes. I want to introduce you to Professor ERIC SANDVOL. Welcome back to Radio Friends, Professor from the University of Missouri. Actually, you were on here back in January, and we were talking about earthquakes. February was Earthquake Awareness Month. It was. And as it turns out, in February, we did have a minor or a small earthquake in southeastern Missouri.
That's right. Yes, we had a number of them. But yeah, there was one that was got up to magnitude 3.
But we are rather complacent here in central Missouri because we say, well, earthquakes really can't happen here. Can they happen here?
So they are the epicenter or the center of the earthquake is very unlikely to happen here. But if there was a similar big event that happened 200 years ago, as we had in southeastern Missouri, down in the Madrid region of the state, we would certainly feel the effects of that earthquake.
That's what you mentioned last time.
That's correct.
But now, what causes the earthquakes? It's the what are those plates called?
Plates. They're called plates. Tectonic plates, if you like.
Tectonic plates. And they are always moving, right?
They are. That's right. That's exactly correct. So it's called the theory of plate tectonics. It was developed in the 1950s and 1960s, and it's really an amazing, powerful theory that explains where we have earthquakes, where we have volcanoes, and explains almost all aspects of how the solid part of our planet works, actually.
Now, these plates under us, they're moving, correct?
They are.
But why would they not be causing the possibility of an earthquake here, even if the plates are moving underground?
So it's a great question. So you're exactly right. The plates are always moving. We live on a plate called the North American plate, and it moves about 1.5 centimeters every year, approximately to the southwest, about that much.
Now, that's not very much.
No, that's not very much. In fact, the fastest moving plate was called the Pacific plate. It's a very big plate, and the edge, the very eastern edge of the Pacific plate, is right in California on a little fault that you might have heard of called the San Andreas Fault. And so that's the boundary between these two plates, the North American plate that you and I live on and the Pacific plate. That's the boundary, and that's where earthquakes happen. They happen at the edges, at the boundaries of these tectonic plates.
And that's the San Andreas Fault.
That's exactly right.
So what connected out in California is the plate that we are on.
Yeah.
Our plate is moving to the southeast.
Southwest.
Southwest.
Yes.
The Pacific plate is moving
right down there it's moving to the northeast. So they're sliding past one another.
And occasionally they will touch or rub.
So this is another great point, and this is something I talk to people about all the time, is why don't we have big earthquakes all the time if the plates are always moving, right? What happens is the plates get stuck. They're stuck together, and so they keep moving, and so what happens is the earth crust bends, kind of like bending a stick, which is what I use to explain how earthquakes work. Eventually, the earth's crust bends so much, it breaks, and that's what an earthquake is the breaking of the earth's crust.
Now, are you not able to predict an earthquake if the Earth's crust is bending? Can't you see that?
We can see it. We can measure it amazingly precisely, but it turns out the Earth is a very complicated thing to understand, and we can't predict it. In fact, there's even some mathematics that suggest that predicting earthquakes, knowing all the variables and knowing everything, might be impossible. It's called chaos theory or nonlinear dynamics. So it's probably, we certainly can't predict it now. There may be some hope that we could find some event called a precursor that comes before an earthquake. But this all is an interesting thing that relates to earthquakes in Missouri, because we are not at the edge of a plate here in Missouri. We are in the middle of a plate.
Well, then why are there earthquakes occurring down in southeast Missouri?
So that's really a great question. So The quick answer is we don't understand very well, and this is a great scientific problem for
So
us to solve.
there's not a crack down there. There's not.
So there are faults, but there are faults everywhere. There are even faults here in Colombia, and faults are like you would describe them, cracks, or where we've had movement at some time in the past along the Earth's crust. And there are active faults down there, but we don't understand what's generating that differential movement across the faults there because we're in the middle of the North American plate. I mean, not even close to the edge. We're literally in the middle of the North American plate here. So it's a really perplexing problem. Some people, a very interesting idea that's been published is it may be related to sediment coming out from the last ice age, and that's loaded the tectonic plate. And there's some other rather bizarre ideas that it could be density variations that have been caused in the Earth's crust.
So we know that one end of the North American plate is out in California. Where's the other end?
That's a really interesting point, too. So
you don't know that?
Oh, I do. It's not on the east coast of the U.S., which is what a lot of people would think. There's not many earthquakes out there, is there? It's actually in the middle of the Atlantic Ocean. It's called the Mid-Atlantic Ridge. And it separates the North American plate and the other plate directly to its east called the Eurasian plate, where Europe is and Eurasia.
So how many different plates are there?
Well, it depends. So we're sort of breaking things down. It depends on how you define it. If we talk about just the really big plates, there's in the neighborhood of 9. Okay. But there's actually a lot more smaller plates as we're beginning to learn and be able to measure this motion.
But our plate that we're on goes from California out to the middle of the Atlantic Ocean.
You got it.
Now, what's going to happen one day? Is that plate, the end of the plate, ever going to, millions of years from now, be right over central Missouri?
Probably not in its current motions. So, and currently in its motions, because in Missouri, I mean, if you're on the plate will move, but where you're on the plate probably won't move. So we would have to have some kind of major event to split apart the plate, which does happen. Plates split apart and you form new young oceans. In fact, that's happened.
You form new what?
Oceans, oceanic basins. So like the Red Sea that separates Arabia from Africa, that just formed 20 million years ago when the African...
Oh, just 20 million years ago.
Yeah, just 20 million years ago. That's when Arabia broke away from the African plate. If some event happened like that, then you would form a new oceanic basin here in Missouri, and maybe that'd be a new plate boundary. But that'd be a different plate.
Yeah.
So we're just going to keep moving right along with the North American plate.
Oh, my goodness. I mean, this really, when you think about it, it's so interesting, and it's mind-boggling also.
I agree.
I don't know if that really answered the question that I had as why we don't have earthquakes here in central Missouri.
Well, okay. The really quick answer is the plate itself is different here than the plate is down in the Boot Hill down in southeast Missouri. The plate here is thicker and stronger, and so it doesn't break probably easy.
Okay, that answered my question.
Very good.
If people want more information on this, where can they go on the internet to find it out?
So I would say we have a really good commission talking about earthquake, a really good website for the Missouri Seismic Safety Commission, the MSSC. If you Google that, the first link on Google, will be a great place to go.
Okay, Eric, thank you so much. You've got to come back again.
I'm happy to.
I'd love to have you come back again.
Thank you,
really
Paul.
interesting conversation. We're out of time for today. Want to remind you our program, directed by Travis McMillan, Reynolds Journalism Institute. Audio is Pat Akers from KBIA. Our floor director is Ariel Sierra. And our assistant producer and guest coordinator, Uncle James Mauser. You got a question? Drop me an email, pepperp@missouri.edu. Bye-bye.